Welcome to CED Office Hour Live. For joining us this week on April 4th, 2024 for this week's edition of CED Office Hour Live, where this is our weekly show that our Community and Economic Development team uses as a way to outreach to all of the residents, organizations, and entities throughout the state of Ohio and nationally. And we use this as a platform to educate everyone, connect resources to people, connect agencies to agencies, or in the business world, B2B, business to business, as well as businesses to consumers, individuals that we're working with, just everybody, right? And so we have different subjects every week. This week, like I said, this month we will be focusing on women in reentry. And this week we will have Judge Nicole Sanders. She's part of the Common Pleas Court in Hamilton County. But before we get started, I always like to give a baseline of what community and economic development is. It is like diversity, right? And diversity is one word, but it has so many different variations, interpretations of the word. And it's the same thing with community and economic development, right? And with community and economic development, commonly known as CED, because in academia, we always have a bunch of acronyms in government, right? So that's our acronym. Community and economic development looks at how we live, how we work, how we play, how we thrive throughout and navigate through all of those spaces, right? So on one end of the spectrum are things that commonly people recognize as the economic development end. That's infrastructure, that's building pathways, bikeways, creative placemaking, art in public spaces, parks, buildings, affordable housing, highways. In Cincinnati, the bridge being redone, right? That's all the infrastructure side. The other end of the spectrum is the people side, the human capital side. So that's working with people on professional development, personal development, removing barriers to entry, quality of life types of programming, right? And then the connector between both ends, those bookends of CED, is us, your CED professionals, organizations, the government, academia, businesses, everything that kind of connects those two and makes the communities go around, right? And that is community and economic development. And in the extension space, it is our job to connect education, resources, I'm not only just resource, but research, right? And to best practices and to connect people. And so we are here as CED professionals to work with you, the community, not dictate what you are. I always like to say we work ourselves out of a job because we are here to facilitate, to coach, to give you the skill sets to increase your self-sufficiency, to help you reach your business goal or aspiration, whatever that may be. And then we work ourselves out because we equipped you to maintain that once we're gone, once that project is done. It's our idea that then when you have your new project, your new aspiration, your new goal, then you'll circle back to us and say, hey, this is the new thing I want to do. And I'm like, let's go, right? So that's kind of how we work. And in training, I always tell people that we are the marriage that you want to be in, right? We are your partner. And just as much as we're teaching and educating you, you're teaching us. And that's how we keep up with best practices and making sure that our programming is aligned to what your needs and aspirations may be. And so without further ado, once again, my name is Amber Twitty. I am the CED assigned to the southern portion of Ohio, mainly in the city of Cincinnati, but my area is Hamilton and Butler County, all the way eastward to the eastern border in the greater Portsmouth area. So I have Lawrence and Scioto and everything in between. And so I would like Lisa Lawrence to introduce herself, and then Ambrose, and then we'll continue with our conversation.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Amber. My name is Lisa Lawrence. I am new to the team. I have 1 month in at Central State University. So I am the Northwest Ohio region extension educator. And so I'm excited to be on board. I'm excited to any resources, information. Summer, I think we definitely should connect. I just had someone from our Fatherhood Initiative program in Toledo ask about record sealing. We had been working with ABLE before, but I'm not the Bar Association. So already I'm getting some nuggets that's going to help us here in Toledo. Thank you, and it's nice to meet everyone.
Good afternoon. I am Ambrose Moses. I'm extension educator in the Southwest region, and my primary territory is Franklin County, Ohio. I've been with the university since 2017, and looking forward to our discussion today, and how we can use some of the information and other resources here in Franklin County as well.
So without further ado, let's kind of get into the subject. So like I said, this month, the theme is Women in Reentry. Some of you may not know, April is Second Chance Month. And so I know so many dynamic women in this space, and I just want to give flowers while they educate, but give them flowers for all the hard work that they do. So kicking us off this month is Judge Nicole Sanders. She is currently the Common Pleas, one of the Common Pleas judges here in Hamilton County, but she also is the presiding judge over a specialty program that centers around those who come through her doors for drug convictions and things like that. And it's a way to move people who may have a health issue around drugs to not only dealing with the health issue, but getting them on the path for workforce development and kind of changing their life, moving and changing their world around. And so I'm excited, and thank you for joining us today, the Honorable Judge Nicole Sanders. So to get us started, can you just kind of tell us the background on your journey here? Because that's a story, a testimony in it of itself.
I wasn't going to tell that story, but I guess I don't have a choice.
You don't have a choice.
Let me say thank you for the invitation. I'm looking a little rough today because I was on the road. I had one of my organizations, Ohio Black Judges and Association in Franklin County, which is where I was, where you are, Mr. Moses, met this past couple of days. And so I'm getting on the road from there. But so let me just say, I am not your typical judge. I am from my community, for my community, and was raised by my community. I grew up in a single parent home, grew up in Madisonville, attended Withrow, didn't finish because I had I had and do have a learning disability that wasn't discovered until much later. Went back to college at 23, graduated in 3 years, got into law school at 26, graduated in 29, was hired at the city of Cincinnati as an assistant city prosecutor first, then was promoted to solicitor. I did appellate work. I did criminal litigation, civil appellate work. I've litigated in the federal courts, all state courts, was appointed by Judge Tracy Hunter as a magistrate in juvenile court, served there for 7.5 years until I ran during the pandemic of all things in 2020, and then was elected to the Hamilton County Drug Treatment and Recovery Court. And that's a mouthful, right? So first, let me start to say that I never wanted to be a lawyer or a judge. I thought I was going to be Whitney Houston because I could sing. And that's where I was in the churches, getting my hallelujah on. I was a band girl. I was singing with, Miss Mitchell and Withrow. So I was working on these vocal cords. And then life hit, right? Became a young mother. And the Lord was like, oh, we got to figure out something else. And so I remember being upset, one, because I left school because, I went from being an A student to not being able to figure out algebra. And if you know anything about dyslexia, it messes with you. You can't do math sometimes, and your words move around on you. So I was great in English and history and all of that, but math, it was my downfall. And so I was a little angry, but I was angry with a child. And, anger is not going to feed you or her. And I had to figure it out. And so I prayed about some things, and God said, if you trust me, I'll open every door. So I went to school, graduated with my AS in about a year and a half, got a job as a paralegal with O'Connor, Chani and Levy. Shout out to them because they invested in me when no one else would. And then I went on to get my bachelor's degree in 3 years and got a full scholarship to University of Law School. Shout out to them. Because luckily I got into every law school and got a scholarship, but I got a full scholarship to UC so I could stay home, raise my daughter, and go to law school, right? And so got into, worked as a paralegal and found that I love the law. I love helping people, which, people look at law firms as if they don't help people, but they do. Lawyers, not create, but they confront issues and they help you solve them, hopefully to a nice resolution, sometimes to an even straight. And, unfortunately, sometimes we lose. But I really liked the attorneys that I worked for. They were scrappy, they didn't take no stuff. They weren't afraid to get in the courtroom. And so I was like, you know what? I can do that. And then I had a friend who I worked with at the hospital before I went to school. And she was like, you always in somebody's business trying to help them. So why don't you go do that professionally and go to law school? And of course, I just told y'all I was trying to be Whitney Houston, so I didn't pay her any attention. Until she said this. She said, I'm in the middle of building my house. I believe in you so much, I will stop building my house and pay for you to go to school. And that shook me, because when you have somebody that sees that much potential in you, then you have to pay attention. And so I was like, no, don't do that. And that's when I got in prayer. And that's when God said, if you trust me, I'll open every door. And he really did. I think he sent her to me to tell me that. And then he opened every door, because I just told you I was dyslexic, and I took that LSAT twice and got a good enough score to get in and get a full scholarship. So God sends you angels when you don't know you need them, and he gives you the message you need to hear when you ignoring him. And so I thank God for Devorah Carden, because she was my angel, and I thank God for opening every door once I trusted him. Because I will tell you, my legal career has never been hard. It's been wonderful. I went to O'Connor, Chani Levy. I clerked for Stan Chesley. Ernest McAdams and J. Riddick McNeil hired me at the city of Cincinnati. So I got trial experience. 2 weeks after I was hired in as a prosecutor, I was in the jury trial. And so I got trial skills right away. I got appellate skills. I learned how to write. There was no fear in my legal career, because I had wonderful people around that were mentoring me. Judge Fanon, Judge the Mallorys, Judge Berlew, Judge West, Ernest McAdams, Terry Nestor, Tom Baird, and all these people who are now on the bench that I either came up with or who mentored me. And so, beyond just God mapping it out, because it was never my design, the people that he put in place for me, the mentorship that I got, far outweighs any paycheck I ever had and any bad experience I ever had. Because I had, kings and queens who were around me that saw something in me and poured into me. Judge Fanon Rucker, you know him. He's been a judge. He ran for prosecutor, is a working attorney now, and is a very involved person in the community. Saw something in me towards my end of my career at law school. Him and another attorney named Brian Brewer told us how to pass the bar. And from that day forward, that man has mentored me. I don't know what he saw. I don't know, how he saw, but, he picked me out of a group of people to mentor. And because of his guidance, I'm also here today, because he gives sage advice. And so beyond what I'm doing now, I would tell anyone listening to this that, when your plan don't work, God is always has a better plan, even if you don't see it or agree with it. And when he says that he will qualify those he calls, I'm a standing witness. Because like I said, being an attorney and a judge was never on my radar, but he made sure that I got through well, and that he equipped me with the people and the experiences that I needed to do the work that I'm doing now. So let's talk about the work that I'm doing now. I'm gonna skip over the campaign because the campaign really is not important. What's the testimony is that the end is that I was able to be victorious over a 20-year incumbent. And the way that I did that was that I studied not my opponent, but I studied the court. And I recognized that there was some real substantial changes I could make in that court. The first thing is you have to have a heart for people. So I had to care about those people coming in the door and recognize that no matter what they're suffering and no matter what the offense, every life has value. And once that was my standing point, everything else was easy. I looked at the court and was able to identify that they weren't operating according to best practices, that they had limited accessibility. Everybody in the community did not have an opportunity to participate in the court for whatever reason. There was no transparency, there was no accountability, everything was kind of in a silo underneath, very quiet. A few people had their hands on the court and nobody else knew what was going on. And I knew the type of person that I was. I could go in there and make some substantial institutional changes. And so when I got into the court, the first thing that I did was realize what I didn't know, right? Because we all, when you're a judge, some of us have egos and we think we know everything. Well, I knew there were a lot of things I didn't know, so I called for an audit of the court. And once the court was audited, it was ugly. It was 10 pages of ugly, but it was also 10 pages of a roadmap about how to rehabilitate this court. And so I followed the roadmap, and we had intensive 18 months of training with about 67 people, PDs, prosecutors, administrative staff, assessment staff, probation officers, my internal staff, providers. Like, we were all in for 18 months. And then once we, learned the training, the best practices, the evidence-based modalities, then it was time for implementation, which was hard. But I have to give a shout out to a man I hired named Mr. Lumpkins, 15 years out in the clinical industry, and I had the macro view, he had the micro. He was able to come in and help with our providers design phases and a program that for the first time in the 29 history of this court, we were able to get certified. We were never certified before. So we were able to get certified, which announced to the world and to the Supreme Court that this court has met the standards. They are operating at best practices. They're using evidence-based modalities, and we feel confident enough to give them our certification. Then after certification, we went and got $2.7 million from the federal government so that we could continue to operate by best practices, expand capacity, and make sure we could do the sanctions and incentives and hire peer recovery specialists and have more providers at the table. And so now it's interesting that I'm talking to you today because Friday we graduated 49 individuals. 49 people, have had their lives impacted. They've obtained recovery, maintained it for at least 6 to 9 months to a year, and are now reentry in the community, whole, healthy, and working. So why does it work? Why does our approach work? Well, first, we recognize that substance abuse is a disorder. The American Disabilities Association has deemed it as a disability. Well, there is no other medical condition where people are thrown in jail outside of mental illness, right? And so we've done that for years. Incarceration has been the solution, but it has not worked. It didn't win the war on drugs, and it ain't solving the issue for people who are still using and have a substance abuse issue. So the basis of the specialty court, because I have a specialty court, it's the only one in Ohio that's full-time and statutorily created. Everyone else has a specialty docket, which means they do it maybe once or twice a week, and they decide to form it. My seat is a seat specifically for drug court, and it's the only one in Ohio, maybe in the nation. But going back to, so treatment is the point of my court, not incarceration. Now, I'm not going to lie to you. There is accountability. So there are people who go to jail, but I have very rarely sent people to prison for being sick. And I make sure that if there is someone who's going to go to jail, they are going to jail for behavior and not for illness. You treat illness, you punish behavior. And so I'm a judge. I got the legal expertise, right? I don't have the clinical expertise. So I have providers and clinicians who are present who tell me when someone is clinically stable, so that I never have to make that decision on my own to make sure that I'm not punishing illness. So when you come into the drug court, you come because you've caught, unfortunately, a criminal offense and you become justice involved. And I'm on the felony level. I can take related misdemeanors also. So you come to the court, you come to me. Their first time is called a DSC, Disposition Scheduling and Conference. And at that time, we engage in a conversation. I ask you if you want to be there. Sometimes it's obvious that you have an issue, sometimes it's not, but it doesn't matter because we assess everybody, right? We try to assess everybody to determine the level of the illness. If it's low, then I don't have to have a lot of interaction with you. Low means you just caught an offense, you need some education, you want your ILC, which is intervention in lieu of conviction, so that you don't have the felony on your record. So I don't have to engage with you a lot. But for my moderate and severe people, that means you have a sustained substance abuse issue and you need structure and you need the proper treatment. So we assess you, we determine what level of illness you have, and then we place you in a appropriate program. One of the issues that I had with drug court before I took the bench is that it was one size fits all. You had one provider and you had either residential, lockup, or outpatient. That's not what it's supposed to be. You're supposed to have a range. You're supposed to have the ILC, which is intervention in lieu of conviction. You're supposed to have intensive outpatient, residential, and then lockup residential. But those were the only two choices that we had. And probably 98.5% of the people went to the lockup. That's not right. The illness is not one size fits all, and neither can the treatment be one size fits all. And so you were very deliberate in making sure that we had different phases and different providers so that we could assess an individual and place them in the proper program. And I will tell you, because we have done that, there were no stats before, but anecdotally, the individuals who were there before, and I have some PDs and some individuals who were involved with the court before who have told us that our overdose rate and our fatality rate is substantially decreased. We do not have that issue anymore. I know that we've lost about 16, 17 people in 4 years, and that number is too high. Now, I had about 2,000 participants. I've graduated some people are on KPS status, and some people are still in treatment. But we have a very large docket, and we take care of everyone, regardless of what it is, what their issues are. The one thing that we are able to do with our federal and state grant funding is now we can address barriers. If you have housing issues, we'll pay for housing. If you have transportation issues, we'll pay for transportation. If you have babysitting issues where you need to be in treatment, guess what? As long as they are duly licensed by Hamilton County and don't have any criminal offenses or hits against their license, we will pay for it. We try to address those barriers that make it hard for people to get treatment. We also made it more accessible for everybody in the community, because the one thing we found is that drug courts were basically female and Caucasian. And that was basically just how sometimes people are charged and the barriers for accessibility. So we remove some of those barriers. We don't keep people out who've had adjudications as juveniles. Those aren't convictions. You should be able to come in and get treatment. We don't look at violent offenses beyond 5 years. People are rarely the same that they are after 1 year. So after 5 years, you may not be able to get ILC and get the felony benefit, but you can still come and get treatment. And so with those two changes alone, we increased our minority participation substantially. And so now we are a more accessible court to this community than we were before. Our participants more reflect the community in which this court is situated, which is one of my goals. I could go on for days, so let me stop. No, I mean, I don't want to monopolize the conversation. It's supposed to be a conversation, not a dictatorship or monologue or dissertation. So I'm really open for questions. As you can tell, I'm passionate about this. I love people. I love taking care of people. I come from strong women who took care of people. My grandmother was a domesticate. My mom was a nurse's aide. And so that's all I know is how to take care of people. And so I would dare to tell you that my participant was to tell you, Judge Sanders, play no games. She's firm but fair, but at the end of the day, they know I love them and they know I take care of them. So, questions?
I don't think I have a question just yet, but a comment. in hearing you talk about what your experiences and what you do in the system and in the court. It really highlights what I've seen over the years in my practice as a lawyer, and in things that I have seen at the courthouse, the demographics of the clerks in Franklin County, the clerk's office, the demographics of the judges, the folks who are on the bench, all that has changed dramatically. And then one thing that I think that you're really illustrating, your service illustrates, is in undergrad. I took a sociology of law class, and the one thing that has stuck with me all this time was the philosophy, judicial philosophy, sociological jurisprudence, where they say that good law can only be made when one understands the social context in which that law is to operate. And I have applied that and viewed the law in that context, in that framework. There are many times, many times, when folks they don't see it that way. They take this economic view, and they almost put a price tag on serving others, or what should happen, or the suffering, or the value of other people who are coming through the system. What you're illustrating here really shows the where the sociological jurisprudence approach is that's the real of what's needed, and you all are actually doing it. Some of the judges like yourself are actually doing that, and I think that is such a value and benefit for the community.
I thank you. I will tell you, I have so many stories where people tell me I have never had a job before. I just graduated a gentleman who had been suffering from this addiction for 40 years. He's been sober for over a year. He has re-engaged with his son. He's getting a job, and he had his own apartment for the first time in 40 years. And so the fact that you can teach people that it is an illness, there's no cure. So you have to stop coming from it at that angle. It's how do you manage the illness? And when you give them the tools in the toolbox so that they can recognize trauma, they can recognize the triggers, or they can recognize that person, those people or those places aren't good for me, and extricate themselves. So it's all about making sure that not only do you give them treatment, but that you give them tools that they can actually use in their life, and that you tell them, we're still here. Because I tell them, just because you don't have a court date scheduled doesn't mean that your sober support network is gone. We're still here. What we should do in our community, and I'm going to just talk about the African American community now, because oftentimes they're overlooked. And just for the record, Walnut Hills is ground zero for African American overdoses in the state. Wow. We have to make it okay for our community to address substance abuse. We are losing African American men, and nobody's talking about it. People say African American men smoke weed, they don't use opioids. That's not true. The demographic that we're losing at the highest rate, all the others are coming down, is the African American males. They use fentanyl. It's in their weed. Fentanyl's in everything. They're still smoking crack. And we have to make it okay to reach out and ask for help. You got to take the judgment away. You got to take the stigma away. And you have to be willing to help. And I know it's not easy. I got stories. I'm a child of somebody who suffers from substance abuse. I have cousins. I've watched, this touches everyone. It doesn't care about your race, doesn't care about your religion, your social economics, your education level. I have pharmacists, nurses, and maids in my program. Do you understand? And so we have to remove the stigma from our community, because every other community outside a couple of other minorities understand that it's okay to go get help. And if we don't do the same thing, we are going to continue to lose in our community. Got to take the judgment away. Got to take the stigma away. It's an illness. It's a brain disease, documented and proven. and it has to be treated as such. And it's no cure. It's not. And sometimes it takes a long time until it gets better. And you got to be willing to step and stand in there. You have to. If not, we're going to lose.
Judge, good afternoon.
Hello, Mr. Mudd.
I am very, very excited to hear from you. And I'm telling you why, because I feel your passion and I understand it. And I understand why you're so passionate. And that's a great, for me, I can't speak for anybody else, but for me, that's a great thing because I know individuals who suffer from different things, family members, friends, etc. And they've always been looked at as, oh, you just a pothead, or you just this, that, and the other. And they're suffering from other things, and it's mental health. And one of the stigmas that are out there that Black men are not, mental health is real for Black men. My sons and I, we talk about that all the time. It's mental health is real for Black men, and it's real in the sense that you need to understand how to get help. You need to understand that it's okay to ask for help. And I have preached that with friends and family members, in particular one of my nephews, and told him, look, you need to get the help that you can get. He's a veteran. And I said, seek that help. He had, he's been in, he was in the Gulf War. He's been in the wars. And it's like, dude, you got things that's playing inside your head that can't nobody help but someone who's licensed, who can help you
PTSD
work.
at the worst.
PTSD is the worst thing. And he
Mhm.
has seen some things being in combat that nobody ever needs to see. And he's made that statement. I don't want to talk about it. Fine, don't talk
Secondary
about
trauma.
it. Talk
Secondary
about it
trauma.
with somebody. Go to the Veterans Administration and talk about it with someone who will understand where you've been. But I feel your passion. And as an individual, I'm the project director for Central State Workforce Training and Business Development. And I understand reentry, and the process is not easy for individuals who have hit a bump in the road. And there's two questions that I always receive when I'm talking or engaging with community or individuals at an organization. One is, first of all, is your training free, Dr. Muff? Yes, my training's free. And the other one is, what happens, do if I have citation for this or weed and this, how, my response, I give them two responses. My first response comes from, okay, let's be realistic. I don't hire anybody. I will train you and give you the skill set to put you in the game so you can go pursue an opportunity. I don't hire anybody. I don't establish those rules of hiring. So I can't tell you, yes, if you hit this, someone's going to hold it against you or not hold it against you. I can't tell you that. The
Mhm.
second thing that I always get is for individuals, they want to know the educational level. Do I have to have, or age groups, do I have to have high school diploma? Again, I don't set that criteria. However, I will train you up and skill you up and help you establish that foundation, again, to pursue those in-demand opportunities, be it your reentry or just John Q. Public, because you need to understand where you can go and get that help from.
Right. So what we do, we also, so say in the sentencing phase, if I find out someone doesn't have a GED, I make them get one because I have a GED. And I tell them I went from a GED to a JD. If it was a good enough degree for me, it's a good enough degree for you. And so we've also added vocational training because there are some people who are so experienced or up in age that it might not be practical for them to try to get their GED, but we can give them for some vocational training. So we make sure everybody leaves there. You got to have it. And if you don't have it, you're not graduating the program. It's a whole program. We try to make sure that when you leave, you have a job, you have your education, and you have the tools in your toolbox with your sobriety to maintain your sobriety. And so the other end of the conversation is one that the Hamilton County Coalition is having, but they need to have it, much broader, is those businesses that hire you have to understand that some of those offenses were committed as a result of mental illness or substance abuse, and this person has been trained to now manage the disease, and they deserve a second opportunity or a third or a fourth. Because if we don't, then you have this second-class citizenry that cannot be employed and cannot get housing and therefore cannot sustain themselves, which then becomes, in some people's mind, a drain on resources or on the county, and that's not fair. So there needs to be a sustained conversation with the business community, and not just a conversation like some skin in the game. Like, just stop talking about it and like really do it. And so when I do, because I also do community outreach projects, events, I take my court outside the courtroom and I go out in the community and I'll demonstrate how our court work. I feed people because that might be the only meal they get for the day. We take resource bags, we take Narcan, fentanyl, we take help with utilities, we take all that information with us. But we also bring Ohio Justice and Policy Center because they do second chance expungements. We take the Salvation Army because they will do treatment whether or not you have insurance. And we take the quick response team because they will also give out Narcan and xylazine testing strips. So we take the resources with us along with the information and the demonstration of our court when we go out into the community.
I have a question from the audience. I live in Xenia, aka Smallville, and I don't think there are any people in our court system that are willing to help those that are stuck dealing with sobriety issues. How can we get people on board here? I have known of too many people that have suffered with this and they feel alone. So what can be done? And also, Summer, if you can chime in as well, if you have any resources.
So I would make sure, I would research what type of community partners you have, what type of providers you have, but also go talk to your judges and talk to them about the issues that you have in the community and that you would like to see someone form a drug court. Because if you have a judge in that county, they can form a drug court. Like, I'm statutorily created, but there are a bunch of treatment courts that are formed simply because the judge finds that there is a need and they want to do it. So you have to try to convince someone that there's a need, that the need needs to be addressed, and that it would help the community. That's what I would do. I would find someone who could help me in some advocacy work in that regard. But I would also research to see what local partnerships are around, and providers, to see what resources you could get. But, and sometimes it's hard to get people to take on additional work, and treatment courts are a different beast and they are a lot of work, especially if you want to do them correctly. But I would find somebody and I would just, have to be my community advocate and be like, look, we need this here. We have a sustained problem, whether it's Smallville or Bigville, and we need to address it. And there's this mechanism that we know that is available in the state of Ohio. There are many, many, many treatment courts. And why don't you start a treatment court or start a SAS treatment and mental health court? Doesn't have to be one. You can be two.
There's not much I can add to that. As far as resources go in Xenia, I will just say we know that that's an area that is in desperate need of more resources, is in desperate need of a drug court, is in desperate need of people elected to the bench who understand that. We find oftentimes you go 50 miles outside of a big city and you're going back 50 years in time on how the courts are going to behave towards people. And it's absolutely unfortunate. I wish that I had better answers on how to get around those, other than what the judges said is just, keep asking, keep pushing, find other organizations that will help with that advocacy to make sure that the elected officials and the courts understand what the community wants and needs.
But I will also tell you, we have a Chief Justice who is big on reentry. And you can contact her by letter. Make sure you do it respectfully. Her name is Chief Justice Sharon Kennedy, and you talk to her about the need and ask her to see if she's willing to look into seeing if she could encourage one of the sitting judges to, assume and start a drug court. I mean, you can, I needed help and I wrote to my Chief Justice and got a response. And so I will say that reentry, she's really keen on that. And drug courts are a form of reentry because we help people learn how to manage their disease and then reenter the community a healed and whole person. So, you know, if you can find somebody who can help you write a letter, you can advocate directly to her.
Judge Sanders, I have a question, and your testimony is absolutely amazing. It really blessed me today. So my question is, you said, because I know we have drug court in Toledo, but I think you said there's a difference between drug court docket and then drug court.
So, it's Toledo. What county is that? Is that Lucas County? So so let me tell you, y'all really do have a drug court because y'all have Judge English, and that's my mentor judge. And Judge, he is responsible for what you see here today. He will tell you no, but that's a bad man. And he helped mentor me and still mentors me. And so his is a docket in that he is general division. He does the rapes, the kidnappings. I don't do any of that. All I do all day, every day, sometimes all day, 24 hours, because we all got 2 phones, me and my staff, is deal with individuals who commit offenses because of substance abuse. So I don't do murders. I don't do rapes. I don't do any of that. I just concentrate on the substance abuse issues. I was created statutorily in 1995. Next year will be 30 years. And I'm the only one in the state of Ohio. The only one. So that's the difference between the docket. Judge English does his on Tuesdays and Thursdays at like 3:30 and 4 o'clock. I do mine all day, every day.
Thank you for explaining that. I'll reach out to him too. Thank you.
And he's just the best. Tell him Nikki said hi.
I will. Thank you.
And Shoshonda said thank you. She'll do some checking because too many people are dying, young and old. And Shoshonda, I put the link to Chief Judge Sharon Kennedy website page in the chat, so you can pull it up there.
Thank you. You're getting those resources out there in real time. My girls.
Yes. That's the beauty of the chat. Ray, did you have anything that you would like to say? Because you have interactions with Judge Nicole Sanders over the years and
well,
living testimony.
I typed it in there. I didn't want to hold. Well, I know that once upon a time, well, I'm the same. I had to get a GED the same way. But once upon a time, they told me I could never ever get rid of my felonies. So I tried so hard to do everything I can to get rid of them. It was they said it's a second chance program you can go to get it. But when she got in that office, and actually I've helped with her campaign a little bit to get her in there. She won, but some kind of way when they sent that paperwork to me, said your felonies, you don't have no felonies no more. I seen her name at the bottom. I said, whoa, wow. But it was.
I didn't do that because you had anything to do with working on them campaigns. I didn't.
No, you didn't even really know me.
All right, I'm just saying, you say that and people put 2 and 4 together and come out with 10, and then we all in trouble. So I'm just saying, I want to keep my license. Lord, hallelujah. That's my job.
It's just a coincidence.
Okay, I'm saying, because that'll be the word of the street.
After that, I wanted you to be one of my Whitney Houstons too. So, yeah, but that's all I had to say. But yeah, she's not
in church singing. They still ask me if I show up, want to pass it, be like, "Oh, Judge Sanders is here, passing the mic," and I'd be like, "Okay." So,
yeah.
Well, I mean, you do have the voice of a songbird.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I've been singing since I was 3. So like I said, I knew I was going to, be the next Whitney, but the Lord had other plans for both of us. So
yeah, I wanted to be Earth, Wind, and Fire. Yeah.
So Summer, can you also just kind of tell just quickly some of the initiatives that you're doing in Montgomery County? I'm based in Hamilton County, but I used to cover Montgomery County and worked a lot with the legal subcommittee up there. That I think that model is awesome. And so can you just briefly talk about that work as well? And I hope that you two connect too. I'll make sure I'll connect you and also with Lisa offline.
Perfect. So I'm Summer Hawks. I'm Executive Director of the Greater Dayton Volunteer Lawyers Project. We do criminal record sealing for 7 counties, Montgomery County, Greene, Clark, Darke, Champaign, Miami, and Preble. And we are a sub-grantee of Legal Aid of Western Ohio. So we actually are a standalone organization, but we receive the federal funding to do pro bono work through that organization. We did about 200 record sealing cases last year, and anybody that income qualifies, we can go up to about 200% of the poverty level can come through our services completely free of charge. And we do public events too. We'll go to the public libraries, have walk-in events, and in those events, we have no income cap. We'll help anybody that shows up. And so what we do is we pull your background check information, look at criminal charges, determine what is eligible on your record and what is not to be sealed, can give counsel and advice on what next steps need to be taken so that they can qualify. I will say out of all this, the record sealing laws changed pretty significantly last year. And one of the things that I thought was really valuable about that change, and I like to highlight all the time, is for the first time ever, the analysis of whether or not you can have something sealed is whether or not a charge is eligible to be sealed. It's no longer whether or not you are an eligible offender. It's whether your offense is an eligible offense to be sealed. And I like to highlight that because I really think that's a change in perspective. We're no longer judging the person. We're judging the individual action that they took on whether or not it can be sealed. And I think that's an important shift in how the courts and how the statutes look at things. And I think that gets glossed over a lot of times. So I really like to look at that because I no longer am having to tell somebody you've been judged ineligible to have your record sealed. I can say you are eligible to have this, this, and this taken off. Unfortunately, state law says you can't have this sealed, but here's some other options. And like I said, I just think that's an important kind of perspective point to really point out. We find, we go into the reentry program here in Montgomery County, so we know we're talking to people that are just straight out of prison, and we know that they're not necessarily going to be able to have their records sealed, but it's really nice to have those conversations with them to let them know that there's light at the end of the tunnel, and that there's things that we can do, or things that you can work towards. And sometimes to me, that's just as valuable as the people whose records we can actually, turn in documents for that day, just letting them know that there is something sort of at the end of this process that's going to be helpful to them. We don't do as much with CQEs as I would like to. I know that Hamilton County has really led the charge with those certificates of qualification for employment within the state. I'm hopeful that in Montgomery County, we're going to start getting a little more traction with that because we do now have a judge on the bench who came from the public defender's office and understands the importance of these things. That's Judge Angelina Jackson. So I'm looking forward to seeing where we can go with that. Yeah, and as far as the Reentry Council goes, that's something that I'm a part of along with a number of people. The Public Defender's Office here in Dayton, they have a group that does record sealing. They'll actually help beyond some of the people that we can help, so they don't have income restrictions necessarily for their record sealing. And they help, we sort of tag team this to make sure that we're helping as many people as we possibly can. It's really, and that's one of the representatives on the Reentry Council, along with the people that actually work at the Reentry program in Montgomery County. We have Katie Wright, who is leading the Governor's Expedited Pardon Project out of the University of Dayton. She's another partner on there. And Katie's great. We go to each other's events because somebody that can't have their records sealed, maybe they would qualify for a pardon or vice versa. And so we try to just make sure that we're providing as many options as we can for people. In the last couple of years, we've really learned how important it is, like the judge was saying, to go out into the community. It's no longer you have to come to my office. We will go as to anywhere that we possibly can. Churches, community centers, housing developments that have a community center. We'll go to any of those places. If you can tell us that we'll have 5 or 10 clients, then we'll come out to you. And what's really nice is we've gotten a lot of buy-in here recently with the clerk's offices coming with us, because one of our biggest problems has always been we can't control what happens when they leave our appointment. Are they going to go to the clerk's office and file those forms? Do they have the transportation to get there, that sort of thing? So we're really starting to get some real buy-in, especially from the municipal courts, to send a representative when we're having a large event so that they can just get things filed right there. And that's another place where just trying to break down those barriers that are keeping people from getting the services that they're entitled to.
And just the 3 or 4 just basic record sealing clinics that were done last year, we had over, if I remember, over 250 individuals who got their records sealed. And that's not counting the driver's license clinics. That's not counting the child support clinics. And one of the things that the committee's looking at is just informing organizations how to do a record sealing clinic, right? How to partner with the court system in your county, and also just informing people on the different processes that are common that people don't know, are common occurrences, but people just in the general public don't know how to navigate. So I just want to point out that, you all are doing awesome work, and it's duplicatable, Lisa. So that's why I wanted to connect you to, so that you can duplicate it in Toledo. Down here in Hamilton County, they do some awesome work out of the public defender's office. The public defender here has the same kind of fervor as Judge Sanders in summer, and he does clinics every other week on Wednesdays. But like he said, me and him had talked a couple years ago, and he was saying how he wanted to increase those CQEs, so that there's even more opportunities. So they do. Montgomery and Hamilton County kind of take different approaches, but they're both very effective. And they're serving a lot of people, and they both are geared towards, now you got your record sealed. Now what? And we're like, I don't know. No, the next step is, here are the resources. And that's where like Dr. Muff comes in. You need to go over on Germantown to the Dayton, Central State Dayton campus. They have some programming for you. The Office of Reentry will help you with some basic life skills, survival skills, basic work etiquette. Now you've graduated from that program, go over to Dr. Muff. So it's really a system of agencies and collaborations. So you all didn't know it, that you all are also community and economic development professionals. You're just subject matter experts in law, right? So, in workforce development. So are there any other questions or comments that anyone would like to say or have?
I have one. Summer, I saw you this morning, so
Yes.
good to see you again. Just I'm putting this out there on the table because I know the importance of being able to have the type of environment or the clinics that can be held on expungements and things like that. And need be, if it would be great to get together or collaborate on something that can come to Central State, our workforce training center, just around that, because it creates a couple of opportunities for us, and we get individuals in a closed caption type of situation where they're getting the information that will feed their expungement needs and how to get things sealed. But it also gives us an opportunity to introduce them to the type of training and that we offer, and again, free of charge, and built to establish a foundation in an industry that will help you get a good job, and that will help you get something that's sustainable and provide you with an opportunity to grow, to impact your family and your siblings and everybody around you in your neighborhood, because now they know that you can come get some training, receive training opportunities, and get a good job. So opening up the center, and would love to be able to have a hosted event of that magnitude and have individuals come through and see and participate and get what we can get done on that level.
Absolutely. Send me an email. We'll work something out. And we're doing some outreach with some of the other universities, especially if you have a paralegal program at Central State, because paralegals can volunteer to help with these types of clinics. So they get some real life experience. It helps us with the manpower to throw off one of these events. And it seems to be a win-win for people. So let's definitely brainstorm a way that we can come out there. I do have one other comment that I'd like to make. And I know, Professor Muff, you heard this morning, but this is something that I think is really encouraging right now, that just happened. So I do record sealing in Clark County, which has normally been somewhat like Xenia on being one of our more difficult courts to work with and get things kind of moving forward. And recently I was contacted by the prosecutor in Clark County, who had just received about 30 record sealing requests because we had done a clinic the day before. And a lot of them had unpaid fines or court costs that were associated with their cases. And he was wanting to reach out to see if there was a way that the prosecutor's office could actually help facilitate. That's normally something that will stop you from having your record sealed if you still have outstanding fees or fines. But if it's something that's 10, 15 years old, come on, you're not going to, the likelihood of that ever getting paid off is almost nothing. And the likelihood of you getting a job while this is still on your record to be able to pay it off, it's just a vicious cycle, right? So the prosecutor is interested in trying to figure out a way that we can get around those to where they can actually file something when they get the request to seal the record to tell the judge we're fine with the fines being waived. And I almost fainted because I just wasn't expecting that from a prosecutor. And so it was really encouraging to me to see that there are people in those positions that are starting to get it as well. And I just think that's a great thing coming.
Awesome. Lisa, Dr. Muff, do you have any comments, questions?
No, I'm just so glad I attended today. Thank you. Thank you. Wealth of information. And I am excited to bring change to Lucas County, be a catalyst for a change.
And
And
somehow I
Judge?
did put my information in the
In the chat.
All right.
And Judge Sanders, do you have anything to close us out?
No, my grandbaby came in and she got 2 teeth pulled, so she was just telling me, and I didn't want to kind of be distracted, so that's why I went on camera. But no, Amber knows how to contact me. I am always available to have in-depth conversations. My room is number 500 at the courthouse. If you are ever in Cincinnati and you want to come and actually see if I'm just talking or if I'm walking the walk, you're more than welcome to come and pop up unannounced and watch court, and then we can have questions and answers afterwards.
Well, this concludes this week's topic, Women in Reentry, the Common Pleas Court. Thank you, the Honorable Judge Nicole Sanders, and all the good work that you are continually doing that are really impacting lives, right? And opening them up for new opportunities, whether it's education, jobs, just having a healthy living environment, a safe living environment, right? And so thank you for all of that work. We know it's your mission work. We heard it in your testimony and passion. Next week, we will be having Deanna Hoskins. And I know Judge Sanders knows Deanna. Deanna came to Ohio by way of Indiana, and she did a lot of policy advocacy work in the reentry space. And she came to Ohio, and she is why we even have offices of reentry in Ohio. She started that, and she ran the first one, which was in Hamilton County. So she'll be talking about the roles of the offices of reentry that are basically in every major city in Ohio. She also was leading the charge in the changes of state laws that went from aligning the crime with the industry, right? So if you sat there and say you did breaking and entry with a gun, of course you're not going to necessarily get a real estate license, right? But that doesn't mean you can't be a barber, a cosmetologist, or a commercial plumber. And so whereas the laws before it was just a blanket, so then they tell you to go get a job or start a career, and it's a vicious cycle, and then people end up going back to jail. So she led that charge, and Ohio was one of the forerunners in that space nationally. So she'll be talking about that. She left Ohio to run some national organizations, and she's currently running Just Leadership USA, and they're doing a lot of the same work, but on a national scale. And so she'll be talking about that and the trends and the data. So I hope that everyone can come back. Like Nicole, she will have us on fire all over again. So I'm just forewarning you. But looking forward to that conversation. And once again, thank you, Judge Sanders, for taking time out of your docket, because this is, during the day to join us. So just really appreciate it, and look forward to seeing everybody next week on CED Office Hour Live. Thank you.